Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world right now. This is Amber Wang of the Raw Entrepreneur. Today is our monthly circle call where we meet every first Thursday of the month on Mindvalley Live. And I'm just very grateful and thankful that today we have Dr. Josie Beug, uh, who has kindly joined us to share her views on what we're going to go through to the new year. Um, with the new year coming in 2022, everyone's talking about setting new year intentions, new year resolutions, what we want to achieve. There's usually a lot of excitement or hype sometimes I feel. And high expectations on achieving these New Year resolutions, but most times somehow along the way a lot of people sort of slack off and they fizzle out. So we I was hoping that we can talk with Dr. Josie about how we can consciously set some new year intentions for ourselves, to help care for ourselves better, and in turn to help better consciously care for the animals under our care. So, Dr. Josie, thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome, Amherst. It's always nice to be here with you. Yeah,
Yeah,
so we're
I was just
here.
wondering,
Yeah, go
yeah.
ahead.
No, so how has the new year treated you so far?
Um, the new year, as I've gotten older and older, I've kind of separated myself from the collective celebration of the holidays in the new year. And I'm a traditional Chinese medical veterinarian. And so I've dove down into really the real meaning of the seasons, and even from like an indigenous perspective. And I really try to withdraw and get quiet during this time of year. And so there's also this push from the collective, though, between Christmas and whatever holidays you celebrate, and then this whole new year, like we're changing on the Gregorian New Year on January 1st over. And I think there's this expectation built up in the collective and the outer world that, oh, everything's going to be different. We're in 2022. We can burn 2021 and we can just, it's like stepping off this cliff into a new world. And that really doesn't happen. And actually, January 1st is a really arbitrary setting point for the new year. It doesn't really fit in with any of the natural rhythms or cycles of the planets or the earth. It's based on, like I say, the Gregorian calendar, which is a man-made like overlay onto us. So but again, I feel it. So I have a lot of my clients and clients who have animals, calling up and wanting to get everything off to a big start. And I'm still in hibernation mode. And I kind of got slapped in the face 2 days ago because I tried to get out of hibernation mode too fast. And I ended up starting to get symptoms of my body fighting something off. So I went on a bunch of preventatives and I'm feeling better, but it forced me to step back into my hibernation cave a little bit and slow back down. And in traditional Chinese medicine, winter is the time of the water element. And the water element is, the way I think of the water element is to think of our oceans and streams. The water element can be like a rapidly running river, but then that opens out into the ocean. And so you might have these really like stormy waves up on top of the surface of the ocean, but when you dive down under those waves, you can go really, really deep. And you can go so deep that there's no more sunlight. It's almost blackness. And that blackness, like down in the depths of the ocean, it's like going down into the womb, or down, or if you go far enough down into those depths, you actually, some people say it's like the Taurus field Or if you descend down into the depths, eventually you're going to come out the other side and go from the depths, inner depths, to the outer depths. So like going from the deep inner depths of the ocean to the outer depths of deep space, way out there. So there's this feeling of doing that, and the water element rules our kidneys and our bladder, but the kidneys are one of our deepest parts of our body. They rule our bones and our bone marrow. And our bone marrow is where it's where our ancestral encoding lives. It's our DNA, it's the stem cells. And it's the kidneys, the adrenal glands literally sit right up above the kidneys. And so the emotion associated with kidneys is fear. And actually, if you look at all fear can be traced back to the greatest fear that we as mortal beings have, which is a fear of death and dying. So the water element also has a lot to do with going to that place of death and dying. And there's a saying in Chinese medicine, whereas if you don't have enough qi and you don't have enough life force heading into the winter, and this goes back to our ancestors as well. If you don't have enough food stored up and you don't have enough inner resources, you might not make it out of the winter. And there is a lot of times when older people and older animals will die during the winter months and just not be able to make it through. So we're dealing with some really deep philosophical issues as well, life and death, going back to source, going really deep inside. If we look in the northern hemisphere, it's the time when the animals hibernate. Everybody kind of crawls down under the earth. The squirrels have their store of nuts and they crawl down under the roots of the trees, and the bears crawl into their caves. And everybody just slows down and stays close to home, stays close to the hearth. And I think that's what we're really being called to do this year, more so than many other years. Especially with this whole, lockdowns going on and things. But it's a time to go inside. And then I think more as we head into, say, February, and like Chinese New Year, which is actually a lunar New Year, things will start opening up. And that's more of the time. The water element is the time where we go in and we dream the world into being. Okay, so we go into the dream time, and the dream time is where the initial seeds are of what we want to see come about. And so taking some time to go into deep meditation, to really follow your dreams, say an intention before you go to bed at night that you're going to remember your dreams, and start keeping a dream journal. My dreams have been off the charts lately. I'm going on quests in my dreams, but this is the time to dream the world into being. And we plant those seeds, and we go into source and plant those seeds. And then by February is when the earth is going to start warming up, and the seeds are going to start stirring inside and getting ready to germinate and pop out. So.
Okay. So basically, from a TCM perspective, this time of the year in January is actually still considered winter, which is a hibernation mode. I know in Chinese culture, we just had the winter solstice in late December, just before Christmas. I think it was 22nd of December, around that time.
Yeah,
was the winter
21st,
solstice.
22nd.
Yeah. And with the Chinese winter solstice, it's actually a time where traditionally everybody hibernates and stocks up on food and rests. Like the animals naturally in the natural cycle of time. So the Gregorian calendar, which says 1st of January 2022, is actually it's still winter time for for a lot of people. I mean, like I live in Singapore, which is about 1 degree north of the equator, so we don't get winter, that kind of seasonal cold, but we do feel a sense of we get the monsoon seasons here as well.
Mm,
So
mm-hmm,
usually, traditionally, this time of the year, there's a lot of heavy rains,
mm-hmm,
and it's actually generally a much colder period. The winds are actually stronger.
mm-hmm.
Easily, like I caught a cold, a sniffle as well. Just being out.
Yep.
Not nothing to do with the pandemic. It's just I
Yeah.
just caught a chill. But you mentioned earlier that you felt some sort of viral thing coming on as well.
Yeah.
And what have you been doing to sort of mitigate that?
Well, it's interesting because I was actually talking to a human TCM practitioner, and we were saying how in the fall, during the time of metal and the lung time, these viruses will come in and they'll hit you with upper respiratory systems. And this time of year, I live in Florida, so we don't get the snow either. I mean, this is on my outside back porch, all these plants, but we don't get the snow either. But we still have that cold, that chill. The days are shorter. But we were talking about how as the viruses are hitting us now, it's not so much the respiratory as it is a deeper sense of like lower back pain, low energy, body aches and pains. Like if you have any arthritis or you've had injuries in a part of your body, that part of your body will start acting up. And those are all water element signs because the kidneys rule the bones. So you're going to get arthritis pain can get worse. The kidneys sit in the lower back. They don't really sit in the abdomen. They sit in what's called the retroperitoneal space, which is their own little dark cave with the adrenal glands, really. And so you'll get low back pain from there. The kidneys hold our life essence. So when that gets depleted, you get really, really tired. And it's really good. Really, the only thing to do for that is rest. Just sleep and rest and not be super active, not go out to the gym and start that exercise program. That's why I think a lot of the exercise programs probably fail then, because this is not a good time to get up and start totally actively physically moving. So what I've been doing, for this virus thing, I'm on some Chinese herbals. I'm on a kidney and spleen Qi tonic. I'm on vitamin C, vitamin D. I'm taking a lot of the medicinal mushrooms and vitamin D and zinc from the medicinal mushrooms. And I actually went on a preventative course of ivermectin. That's a little political, but that's what I'm doing. And then last night I took this, I was feeling my kidneys were feeling so depleted. I found I had a little bag of some dried nettles left from last summer's harvest. And I made an infusion with them. And normally this would come out green, and it's almost black, this infusion. I didn't let it sit for any longer than I normally do. But again, it's so symbolic of that going down so deep that there's no light, so you go down into the blackness of the green of the nettles. But nettles are very high in minerals, so they're high in things like zinc and magnesium and calcium, so they're really good to nourish the bones. They have an anti-inflammatory quality to help with the bones, but they're also good for the urinary system, the kidneys and the bladder. And they're a tonic, so they add energy into the body, as well as a kind of almost detoxifying, because they're so loaded with chlorophyll. They're also they're good for the immune system, for allergies, in the context of an immune system being overactive, which we're seeing a lot with this whole viral thing, and between the virus and the vaccines and all of that, is that the immune system is being asked to respond in such powerful ways that then it's going into an over response. So nettles is also very good for that, to just it modulates the immune system. It keeps them from becoming too active or too underactive. And it's
Right.
great for women's issues as well. like calcium as we get older and go through menopause, for like you know, to help our bones, and for any kinds of women's issues, menstrual issues, or what have you. So
Yeah,
this is
I
my go-to
noticed
right
that.
now.
Yeah, I noticed when I've spoken to quite a few holistic vets, usually when I interview them, and all of them, have all mentioned that they're drinking nettle tea or some
Oh,
sort of
really?
infusion. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Interesting.
yeah, it's quite interesting. That and Tosi has been like
Tulsi.
the two favorites, especially this past pandemic, since the pandemic started. All the holistic vets I've been talking to, like these are
Oh,
the
really? So I'm
two
not alone.
infusions that yeah, that seem to be really popular with the
Yeah.
holistic community somehow.
Yeah.
I actually do make herbal tea infusions for my animals.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and actually I would like scoop, like for cats for instance, I would take like a teaspoon and I'll add it to the
Uh-huh.
food, to the raw
Yeah,
food
that's
stuff, and
great.
just
That's fantastic.
my dog takes a little bit bigger. She's a bigger
Yeah.
creature.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I it sort of hit me that, oh, okay, if it works, and for us humans having all these herbal tea infusions,
It
it should
works the
do our
same for
animals.
them. Yeah, it works the same for
Yeah.
them. Actually, nettles would be very good for older cats, you know, with any kind of deficient kidneys, something like that. It would be a really good thing to give them. Yeah.
And since you spoke about kidney issues,
Yeah.
you know how I think every cat owner's nightmare is kidney disease. It's
Yep.
the like the number one thing. I've got 12 cats and one dog at home, and I do rescue work. So I
Mm,
think kidney disease is like, oh, the
yeah.
one thing that keeps coming up for felines. Um,
Well, one thing with felines is, and I don't know if anybody's brought this up, it's kind of an old thing, but our cats, they say our domestic cats evolved from the small desert wildcats, you know, from like the Middle East and Egypt. And desert animals evolved to get most of their water supply and their fluids from the food that they eat, because there isn't a lot of freestanding water. And so that's one reason why putting them on fresh foods and putting them on raw foods. My cat has, well, my cat, I lost my one cat who was 17. The cat I have left is 16 now. And she gets some goat's milk and raw food every day. But when you put them on dry food and food that doesn't have enough natural water content, it stresses those kidneys out and that bladder out for their whole entire lifetime. And so I think that's one of the big reasons cats fed dry kibble that we see so much kidney disease in cats. They're also, the kidneys out of every organ, the kidneys have a very complex internal architecture to them. They're made up of these glomerular filtration units. It's like a water plant. It's literally like a water filtration plant in our body. And they have all these tubules and vasculature that goes in there, and they're filtering out, they're pulling water out of their body, but they're also filtering toxins, and they're filtering out all the minerals. And so if you have mineral imbalances, too much of one particular mineral or too little, that's going to mess up the kidneys. And any kind of toxins, any kind of drug, any kind of flea and tick thing, any kind of toxin that might be in the food goes through the liver and then eventually gets dumped out of the body in the kidneys. So they take the brunt of it. And because of their complex internal architecture, the body can't repair them. So these they're called nephrons, and it's each little nephron dies because they just can't handle it anymore, handle the load being put on them. They're not replaced. And so after a while, that's why they say, well, only 70, by the time you have high blood levels of the BUN and creatinine that we measure, there's, what do they say, that there's like 75% of the kidney is no longer functioning. So So everything that we can do from the time that they're kittens on to prevent both toxins, to make sure that they're not overloaded or underloaded on certain minerals, and to have them on a species appropriate diet will help with lots of fluids, you know. And as they get older, I am a big fan of fluid therapy, actually, for all geriatric animals and hospice care. I know a lot of people, a lot of vets now, I'll see people call me with kidney cases, and I'm like, has your vet started you on fluid therapy? Well, no, or they want me to come into the clinic to do it every day. And so I teach them how to do it at home. Something that is even the most, you know, unless you're super needle phobic, I've taught so many people how to give subcutaneous fluids. And that really just helps support the body. It's really important.
It's interesting you mentioned sub-Q fluids for kidneys because and it's not common. I mean, like you talk about in the US where most vets actually get them to come to the clinic to do it, but they
Mhm.
don't. Not all vets would teach or instruct pet owners to do it in the homes, and
Mhm.
unless you're a proactive pet owner who does your own
Mhm.
research, you would actually insist on learning how to do it and how much to give, depending on the condition of your animal, be it dog or cat.
Yeah.
In Singapore as well, I think initially, when we get a kidney diagnosis, most times, we will actually teach our fosterers or adopters, like, okay, this is what you really need to do.
Yeah.
Work with your vet. If they haven't taught you yet, actually get them to teach you how to do it. What I found is that the animal at the vet or cat at the vet usually is more well behaved than at home, because at home,
It's either yeah, one way or the other. They're either monsters in the vet clinic and like totally good at home, or the reverse. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So I've had
Right.
like rescues where my fosters, then when they're the king or queen of the home jungle, then they know exactly where to run and hide,
Yes.
and they refuse to
Yes.
come out. And it's like you sort of have to dance with this, try and catch them to come out, lure
Oh,
them out, you know. Whereas when I bring them to the vet, I think usually because they're so paralyzed by the fear of this new environment. So they tend to be like more compliant in the sense that they
yes.
will just actually stay still and allow it. But I've always told our doctors and fosterers, like, yeah, once you have your kidney readings of a certain level, you really should start sub-Q fluids, because I feel that is the number one thing that has
Oh,
helped
yeah.
to prolong
Definitely. Definitely.
the lives of both dogs and cats when it comes to
Yeah.
kidney issues. And
Because
you're
the
right.
more the more they get dehydrated, the more stress is put on the kidneys, you know?
Yeah.
So,
So it,
yeah.
it, it bothers me when some vets actually, give them prescription diet, and it's and it's the kibble form, and I just tell the owners, I was like, really, honestly, you should just throw it out, because you're just poisoning
Yeah. You
the
know what I
animal's
tell
kidneys even
people?
worse.
And I almost have these ingredients. I pretty much have these ingredients memorized from one of the brands of kidney diet. But I tell them, okay, take your mixing bowl out of the cabinet and put it on your counter, and we're going to dump in there some pork lard. And it's probably pork lard from pigs that have been shot up with all kinds of stuff, so not really healthy pork lard. And then we're going to dump in some water, and then we're going to dump in a cup of white table sugar, and we're going to mix that up, and then we're going to put in the multivitamin and mineral, and that is going to be your kidney diet. That's literally what is in most of like the prescription kidney diets. So what I recommend, and people are, there's this fear that's instilled with them that they can't eat protein, they can't eat protein. All of the original, this goes back to primary research articles, and the fact that, again, the fact that we no longer are looking at real science anymore. But if you go back to the primary research articles on research that was done on kidney disease and protein in food, it was done on rats. And rats have a very different metabolism, closer to humans, than either dogs or cats. So actually what's important, and the American Association of Feline Practitioners came out with all of this information. I was still in vet school, and an internist taught me this. This isn't some holistic veterinary woo-ha thing. This was from the university veterinary teaching hospitals where I learned this. So if you give high quality protein to cats, proteins that their bodies can digest and can recognize, you're doing much better off. And it isn't until almost the kidneys are totally gone that you have to worry about the protein content. And at that point, the animal probably is hardly eating anything anyways, because they're on their way out. So I always tell people, get high quality protein. And the other thing is, with kidney disease, I've spoken to people who are in kidney failure, and ask them what it feels like, how it feels in their body, and they feel like they have the flu. Like they're really weak, they'll have a headache, they'll be kind of nauseous. And that dehydration, think about if you go run in the sun and you don't have enough water and you get dehydrated, what do? You get this pounding headache. You don't really want to eat anything. You're almost nauseous to your stomach. And that's what these cats are experiencing. So it's really important to keep them hydrated, because as the kidneys fail, the water, I describe it as a sieve, and the holes in the filter get bigger and bigger. So more and more water pours out of the body can't conserve as much, whereas more and more toxins stay in the body. So they can't push the toxins out. So you get less fluid, more toxins, more dehydration, and then they get really sick feeling. So if you give them, I tell people, I don't care what they eat. If they've got kidney failure, I just want them to eat. If you need to try fish, if you need to try sushi, I've had people feed sushi to their cats to get them to eat any kind of cooked meat, raw meat, just to get some food into them, and then sometimes you have to rotate it around, because the nausea with the kidney disease is such an issue. But if they're on fluids, a lot of that is prevented for quite a while, as well as giving B12 with the fluids. I find that helps keep the appetite up as well. B12 and B complex are both appetite stimulants, and it helps their energy levels. The two crazy cat ladies, actually, I started using their B12 supplement for my older cat, and she seems to be doing better on it. I feel like she's got more energy with it. So
two crazy cat ladies. If you don't know who they are, you can Google them. They're actually really active on social media. They're a wonderful couple, and they have rebranded their product line called Feline Essentials, and they came up with a B12. It's in a liquid format, isn't it? The B12. Yeah, and they actually collaborated also with Jackson Galaxy with that product,
cool.
which was actually really cool. It was really, really cool. So it's something that I think especially pet parents in the US, where you might have easier access to it over there. And if you have cats or dogs with this kind of issue, this is something that you would want to consider. Because even for us in Singapore, we actually do inject B12 normally into the subcut fluids to help improve the cat's body condition, because sometimes they feel very poorly, but once they get their fluid therapy, they perk up, they eat better, they don't throw up so much, much healthier, and they actually live longer, versus if you don't give the sub-Q fluids. That's how I feel with kidney problems for both cats and dogs. That's something that
there's also a great
recommend.
if you don't give the sub-Q fluids, it's much shortened. I mean, we're talking years. I've had some cats. Now if you add acupuncture into this, and the Chinese herbal medicine has some amazing, they just excel at kidney formulas. So if you can get the herbs into them and pill them, they excel at kidney formulas. I mean, there's formulas that can actually prevent kidney disease. Romania 6 is one that's just like a long life formula, but there's so many that can help with kidney disease. And I'll often take the B12 and I'll inject into the kidney points when I'm doing the acupuncture as well, which really helps as well. But I've had cats live 4 or 5 years from diagnosis, easily, if they're doing
Yeah.
regular, fluids at home and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I've actually found like sometimes with a lot of cat parents, when they tell me, oh, their cat has just been diagnosed or their dog has just been diagnosed with kidney disease, and they get very very upset about it. And for some cases, not all, but especially if it's the beginning, the early stages of kidney disease, if you can improve the diet,
Yes.
sometimes you'll find that the readings will naturally come down. And most times when I've asked dog parents or cat parents, oh, what is the diet that you're feeding?
Hmm.
Um, Unfortunately, usually there is some mix of dry food in the diet. Maybe not
Yeah.
exclusively, but there's a combination. And usually we sort of try to advise them like, okay, have you watched the documentary called Pet Food, PETFOOLED? All right. By Cole Harrington. I love the guy. It's a
Yeah.
documentary
It's a
that's been
good
out for a couple of
documentary.
years. It's been out for a couple of years now, but if you haven't watched it, go and I think it's free on Netflix in the US still. I'm not sure. But
I
on
believe
Vimeo
so.
you can rent it, or maybe Apple or Amazon. You might have to Google for it. But Pet Food, one word, is a very good documentary that talks about the commercial side of pet food and what it does to the animals, without getting too political here.
Yeah.
But it's a real eye opener. And a lot of my potential adopters, when I tell them I'm a fresh food feeder and they're a bit, iffy about, feeding fresh or raw, when they watch that documentary, almost all of them, after they watched it, they are more open to the idea of feeding
Hmm.
fresh afterwards. It's more like a light bulb moment came on, like, oh yeah, it's like telling people, if I was to give you a box of Kellogg's cornflakes to eat 24/7 for the rest of your life, and it's fortified with, vitamins and minerals as the box says so, is that healthy really for you? It
Yeah.
says it's complete, but does that actually healthy for you as a human being? And the thing is, a lot of from the holistic point of view, especially TCM, they'll tell you that it's a dead food because there's no life force in it,
There's
because it's
no
so processed out.
enzymes. There's no, yeah. That's
Yeah,
my favorite analogy to use is like the box of Cheerios, because that's essentially what it is. It's got your
yeah.
recommended daily allowance, but eat that 3 days in a row for a month and that, come back and tell me how you feel. Yeah.
Yeah, and with
But
minimal
yeah,
water, mind you,
yeah, minimal
that
water.
I mean,
Yeah.
just imagine how you feel just eating that day in day out. And when it comes to our dogs and cats, they really suffer. So when I found with early stages for dogs and cats, when we actually just improve their diet and give them more moisture in their diet, be it meat, fish, bone broth is one of my favorites.
I love bone
Um,
broth for kidneys. Yeah.
or fish broth,
Yeah.
or with some people who don't even know what is bone broth, I'll just tell like, you just dunk a whole chicken in with, and boil it like making chicken soup, without the onions, but you
It's
give that,
grandma's old fashioned chicken soup.
yeah,
But they
yeah,
have it in
exactly,
Chinese medicine too. They sell these little jars of
yeah, chicken
chicken bone
essences,
broth. Try chicken
yeah,
essence.
yeah,
It's chicken bone
yes,
broth. It's the
yes,
essence is the bone marrow from the kidneys. That's exactly what it is.
correct,
Like
correct. And I found
yeah.
just for these early signs of kidney failure or kidney disease, once you improve that diet, you might be surprised to see that the readings
Yeah.
actually start to improve. And yes, you might have to give fluid therapy as well, to help and all that. But long term, I found with a lot of cases, like I've had a dog that was only given less than a month to live, and his kidney readings was off the charts, and he was a stray in a rescue, and he had all sorts of skin problems as well. And what I did was I did a Hail Mary on him. So I just gave him raw food. I gave him goat's milk. I gave him golden paste, turmeric golden paste.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of herbal. And you talked about Romania 6. So I
Yes.
actually did give Romania. I think sometimes they have it in Romania 6 and Romania 8.
There's
Some
Romania
combination.
6, 8, 14. There's a lot of Romanias, but Romania is it's a root. And that was the other thing I was going to talk about for kidneys is root vegetables, but it's this root that's black, and they'll cook it to where it's almost black and gooey. But it is so good for a kidney tonic. It tonifies the kidneys and the essence. Yeah.
Yeah, so I found like even with this case where basically the vet and said he won't have more than a month, he wouldn't see Christmas. He actually lived for 15 months and 13 days
Wow. Wow.
from the date that they handed him over, because they were going to euthanize him. And me and two other volunteers, when we went to visit him at the hospital, he had that look. Animals, when they're not ready to die, they have that look of, I'm not ready to go yet.
Oh
I
yeah.
dare you. I dare you to try and take that away from me. He had a very
Yeah.
defined look, even though his body was all emaciated, and he really stank like
Mhm.
hell. And he was just like an old man. But when we brought him home, whacked him with all this, and I used Dr. Melissa Shelton's Animalio essential oils.
Mhm. Mhm.
Somehow that combination of everything I did is basically using different
Mhm.
modalities, layering it on,
Yeah.
and he went through some sort of major detox, because he did a lot of crapping out of stuff, major big time. um Bless his soul, but it really helped clear his system.
Yeah.
And from the beginning, where he could barely stand up and walk, I think by the end of 1 2 months he could actually get out and actually start walking on his own, to
Wow.
go down, because I live on a 20th floor, and I live in a high-rise building in Singapore, so we have to take the lift to go down and walk the dog and do potty, right? But he couldn't for the first month or so, so he did everything in his cage. So I had to clean his cage like multiple times, and he could barely even come out of his cage on his own without
Oh
assistance.
wow.
But once he started eating all that real food and all that essence stuff we were talking about, he could actually slowly move step by
Mhm.
step,
Mhm.
and actually wanted to walk on grass again. And he
Oh.
started to, so he actually healed very well, this old man. His fur came
Oh.
back and everything.
Wow.
And yeah, so he actually lived 15 months and 13 days with
Wow.
us. He had 2 Christmases with us, when the vet said he
Wow.
wouldn't see Christmas. So he spent some major holidays
Oh.
with us. And when it was his time to go, with kidney disease, I think it for a lot of people, we have to explain that there is no cure for a
Yeah.
damaged kidney.
Yeah.
Once
They
it's
can't.
damaged,
That's
it's
why I'm
damaged.
saying, yeah, those
Yeah.
nephron units in there, they don't
Mm,
repair itself. Whereas liver can regenerate and repair, but kidney
yeah.
just can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So whatever that's functioning, we just have to really do our best to try and support it and nourish it. And I love the fact that you do acupuncture, because I have actually seen a lot of animals respond very well to acupuncture. I don't know what is. It looks like magic to the untrained eye, you know. But there's a saying that all the points on the body, it's almost. When we talk about for humans, we say that, oh, there's like 7 main chakras. We talk
Mm-hmm.
about the famous 7 chakras for the humans. Same. There's actually every single acupuncture point is actually like a little chakra wheel. It's like an energy center in the sense.
Well, it is in a
When
sense. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So even like poking the needle and turning it, like
Yeah.
where you put in the energy, like how do you say, anti-clockwise and clockwise.
Yeah.
There's a reason for it as well.
Yep. For
The flow of
tonifying or
energy.
removing excess.
Y-
Yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
gonna teach next Friday. I'm going to teach how to do moxa in my online group, but I may start doing more of that because that's something people can do at home. And I teach my clients how to use moxa, where you burn an incense stick over the points. And you can, there's so many ways of stimulating the points. You can do just light acupressure on the points. People can do this on their own animals as well. And you can stimulate the points that way. I mean, I think the needle is the strongest, most powerful way to do it, but there's a lot of other ways too. And in weaker, and one thing I wanted to mention on those kidney values too, where like when you get them early and you get them on the food and those kidney values will come down. One thing that I'm seeing that vets somehow are missing or somehow forgetting about is when you're in a state of dehydration, just dehydration alone, no kidney failure whatsoever, those kidney values elevate. They don't go like sky high off the charts, but there will be an elevation, and they call that pre-renal. The elevation of kidney levels is called azotemia. That's the clinical pathological name for it. If it's due to dehydration, it's pre-renal azotemia. So sometimes I always tell people, because I've seen animals given a diagnosis of chronic kidney disease and their kidney values are just mildly high. And I'm like, just hold off on that diagnosis. Let's rehydrate them, get them on a good diet, make sure their hydration is really good, and then let's go back and check it and see what they've come back as. So that's something to always keep in mind, especially if there's just that mild elevation, is to make sure that it's not due to just dehydration.
Yeah, because I found with I don't know why, but some vets when they say they give that diagnosis of kidney disease, but they don't explain to parents the readings as well, you know.
No, they don't.
And
There's
I it's
the
it's it's
two main,
it's a bit disturbing. It's disturbing.
well, the two main laboratories now, IDEX and Antech, at least over here in the States, and a lot of the laboratory companies are using these shortcut tests to diagnose kidney disease. This SDMI reading and some other reading. So they automatically say, oh, if that's high, the dog or cat has kidney disease and there's nothing we can do and they're going to die. I mean, literally, I've seen this repeated times. Whereas if I'm monitoring a kidney case and I have a kidney case under my care, I look at the individual's BUN and creatinine. Now, another thing that will allow that BUN to elevate is an animal that's on raw food and on raw protein. Their BUN will go up because of that. Whereas I was taught that the creatinine clearance versus BUN is a much more specific value in terms of how well the kidneys are filtering and how well the kidneys are functioning. So I will look at that creatinine, and I've literally developed almost a scale that I use myself just from experience, depending upon what lab you use, but I use Antech. And if I see that creatinine get above 3 to 4, and definitely above 4, then I'll see their appetite change. I mean, I can literally follow it by the level of that blood value. So I'll keep them on fluids to try to keep it down below that. And I see them clinically do very well. But I can see, based upon where that creatinine is, I'll see changes. Whereas the BUN, if the creatinine is somewhat low and the BUN is really high, I don't worry so much because I don't see the animal symptomatic as much. But so there's little tricks into reading it like that. But I see a lot of vets, they're just going for these new tests that are out that's one value that doesn't give you the nuance, as to where they are in the whole thing. So
Right.
just my take on it.
But I think for a lot of pet parents out there, especially with cats, kidney. Yeah, it's interesting how this conversation started. I honestly, normally we don't even plan what the topics are when we meet up every monthly circle. We just go with the flow of this. We just let the universe guide us. And because we were talking about the new year and the water element, and then the kidneys and bones, that is something that is something that a lot of people don't realize, because how it can affect old animals as well. Would you say Yeah,
Mhm.
go on. Go
Well, I
on.
was just saying the bones are intimately connected, even from not just from a Chinese medical viewpoint, but physiological. There's a erythropoietin is a hormone made by the kidneys that stimulates the bone marrow stem cells to create more red blood cells. And so that's why in advanced stages of kidney disease, you'll often see this chronic anemia set in, because that's because the kidneys are no longer stimulating the bone marrow. But so we've even got the physiological, like Western science connection between the bones and the kidneys. People forget about that as well too. But yeah.
Yeah. So, so with fresh food diet, and fluid support, vitamin B12, B complex, is there anything
Feeding
else?
kidney, feeding kidney, feeding
Actual
actual
kidney.
kidney, get kidney.
Mm,
There is a company standard process here in the States, and I have used their Rena food. It's a product in their human line called Rena food, and it has concentrated cow kidney in it. And I've used that. A lot of cats, they're tablets, but you can break them up and crumble them, and a lot of cats will eat them because they taste and smell like kidney, like meat. But I've had cats that are just will not allow humans to give fluids to them. They're just too wild, or they're feral, or they just will not sit still. I will put them on that Rena food, and I've seen that product alone lower the BUN and creatinine values. It's a really,
mm,
really good product for kidneys. Um, but again, feeding whole kidney. We used
whole
to eat,
kidney.
the English still do, like kidney pie. Humans used to eat all those organs because they're loaded with vitamins, and they're
Yeah.
everything the kidney, all the nutrients the kidney needs to support itself is in a kidney. So you feed that. It's like feeding the organ.
Yeah. The TCM, or even, well, in Chinese culture, they always say, when you have a certain um issue with a particular organ,
Mm-hmm.
feed like
Feed
with
that.
like.
Yeah.
Yeah. To help heal faster,
Mm-hmm.
so in Chinese culture we actually do eat cooked organs like kidney, heart, liver.
Mm-hmm.
There are ways of
Mm-hmm.
cooking it so it doesn't stink so much or whatever. But
Yeah.
I actually like it. I actually feel
Oh, good.
physically when I feel a bit low, especially when I have my menstrual cycle,
Uh-huh.
and I'm feeling a bit low when I'm having my menstruous. I When I eat that, I actually feel much better, especially the liver part. Somehow I just feel like, I think it's that B, it's the nutrients inside the organs that somehow sort
Yeah.
of boost it. Yeah.
Well, and liver is like just a blood sponge. I mean, I hate
Mm,
to describe it like that, but it's just filled with blood. So it's giving you back all
yeah.
the iron and all you need for your blood supply.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned standard process, because I'm in Singapore. I can't really access that
Yeah. Get it.
unless I've got a vet there and whatnot. But another option that we do here is using glandular support. Um,
Mhm.
Basically the gland. Well, how would you explain it? It's
It's the
basically
same.
like,
It's just what you
yeah,
said. Glandular support is
yeah,
exactly what
yeah.
I think of it exactly what you said. If you have a deficient organ, feed that organ. That's exactly what it
Mm,
is. And so with the
yeah.
gland, I mean, with the glands, we're talking about, adrenal gland, thymus,
Mm,
your, all of your
well,
hormonal glands. But it's the
yeah,
same. It's exactly how you described. I mean, there's different
yeah.
companies. I don't know if there's different companies that make different glandular support as
Um,
well, but
yeah. The ones that it's easier for me to order online because
Mhm.
I'm in Singapore is actually Dr. McCullough. That's formulated by Dr. Karen Becker. She does
Oh,
like the
okay.
pet food line,
Yeah.
so she formulates all the pet food supplements under the Dr. McCullough
Yeah.
brand, and there's actually glandular support, male female kind of thing, and I actually give that as an additional supplement to my animals because I have found even when we feed raw food, for instance,
Mhm.
as a rescuer, I have a certain budget because I don't print money, unfortunately. So I can't always feed organic, grass-fed, grass-finished. In the ideal world, that would be lovely. But I can't
Yeah.
all the time. I don't, because of budget. So I feed whatever I can afford. Okay, and this is something that I emphasize with a lot of pet parents. Like, don't feel guilty if you can't afford to feed, because organic food. Don't.
Yeah. Yeah, you
You know,
can.
just go to the supermarket and get something, what you would eat, so long as it's human grade. Ideally frozen, for like 1-2 weeks before you feed. Especially I think pork, just to kill whatever, parasites that might be in there. But for me in Singapore, because we are wee little tiny dot and everything's imported into the country. So everything, unfortunately, is imported frozen already. So for me, I
Uh,
don't have to worry about all this parasitic stuff. Whereas I know, like in the northern hemisphere, like big countries like in Europe or in the US, where you have a huge variety of food sources from hunting, I don't know, and different grades as well. So you do have to be more careful of where you get your food source in the US, where you find them.
well,
But yeah, so I
if you,
found, because I'm on a budget, supplementing stuff like glandular support would help, because you're looking for to add some energetics into the food, some
yeah,
live enzymes
and
as well.
also, I mean, if you, even if you can't afford like the powdered glandulars, Amaris, getting a lot of times the organ meats are cheap. I don't know about
Mm,
there with the importation, but you know, a lot of times you can, and well, if you know butchers, like here in the States, if you know a butcher, that's even better. But I know somebody who, a client, she has Maine Coons and they all have heart disease, and she found a restaurant supply where she can order by the case beef hearts. So she'll get a box of like 10 beef hearts frozen,
yeah.
and you just take them and chop them all up. She'll run them through like a food grinder on her mixer, and then make these little frozen ice cubes for her cats of frozen beef heart, and thaw them out one at a time. But
Mm,
that's one way to do it. And
yeah. I
just to
have.
people, if you can't get organic, the food in your grocery store is 100 times better than what's in that bag of dry food, you know.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I work with a lot of low income families as well. So we do our best to support them and educate them. So we work within their budget,
Mm-hmm.
So we'll say like, okay, if you can't afford not to feed add dry food because of your budget, let's just freshen up the bowl. We talk a lot about
Yes.
freshening up the bowl.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
so that's where
Take,
a lot of times they don't understand what's bone broth. So I tell them chicken soup.
yeah. And take your chicken, your scraps. My dog, I'm an 85-pound shepherd, but she gets everything that's we don't eat on our plates gets scraped into her food bowl. You know what I mean?
Oh
Because
yeah.
we're eating decent food. And so, anything that is, even vegetables that have kind of gone bad a little bit, you could even run through a blender or food processor and pour that on the food. You can do a lot of
Yeah.
different.
Yeah. Yeah, I found with kidney dogs,
Mhm.
or dogs in general, feeding them, I blend like my vegetables raw. It's kind of funny because I actually have the same thing with them. I have my raw blended like smoothies, is raw
Yeah.
vegetables. It's
Yeah.
exactly the same. What I give my dog, I take it myself. So there's broccoli, red cabbage, kale, cucumber, some ginger, I mean, whatever you can get from the supermarket, you just
Yeah.
whiz it up. And
Yeah.
like for me, I add coconut water inside to have that fluid blend, the blender moving. And
That's
coconut
what I
water is really
do.
nice
Yeah.
because I actually call it the poor man's version of electrolytes.
Yes.
Um, uh,
The yard
and
food.
it's a lot much yummier and more delicious,
Yeah.
to be honest, if you get the ones that don't have the added preservative stuff. But
Yeah.
pure coconut water is really good when, like in Singapore, we sweat a lot. And if
Yeah.
you do a lot of exercise, you get muscle cramps and stuff. And years ago, before I became a lot more healthier, I was extremely, my whole lifestyle was extremely processed, okay? So I would drink Coca-Cola, I would drink 100 plus, and I thought I was being healthy by drinking 100 plus, you know? Um, because I told myself, oh no, it's a sports isotonic, it's fine. Little did I know that why? And I'll be looking at my skin and I'll be so itchy and I had an eczema and I'll be flaring up. And it took me a long time to figure out it was the sugar inside all these soft drinks that was
Yeah.
causing a lot of problems and inflammation in my body. And so I switched to coconut water, and that's when I realized like my dog actually likes it. Like she sees me drink it, and then she was just like once she wants to drink from my cup as
He
well.
loves it.
You know,
That's awesome.
yeah. So I've actually so I do raw veg blends,
Hmm.
and I would actually give like 1 or 2 tablespoons to my dog. You don't have to overdo it,
Hmm.
but I found with kidney problems with dogs, especially, they seem they seem to like the vegetable blend seems to really help with their kidney reading somehow.
Oh,
It's like
that's
like
awesome.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I don't
But
know.
it has all the antioxidants, and you're getting, when you
Mm,
blend it up like that too, it makes it more bioavailable than feeding the whole
yeah,
vegetable, because dogs can't break down the cellulose in the vegetable
yeah,
wall. So by making it into a
yeah.
smoothie, it makes it easier to digest and usable for them.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah.
Like I know some parents instead of raw, they might steam the vegetables and give it
Hmm.
gently steamed. That's another option,
Hmm.
for dogs. So I mean, it's dogs. I love dogs because they're like I call them my garbage compactors. They eat whatever my cats refuse to eat, so there's no wastage.
Exactly. Well, that's how they say dogs became living so close, domesticated, and started living so close to
Mm,
humans, is because they came up to our
yeah.
trash piles and our bone piles. And they're like, oh,
Mm,
wow, we'll eat your scraps, and they're still
mm.
like that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, they're very good, efficient scavengers in that sense, you know.
yes, they
Um,
are.
what I actually give for my cats, even my dog, I actually give them herbs, like dried herbs, from my
Uh
kitchen
huh.
counter.
Uh
Like
huh.
the little pantry. So I would actually give them sprinkles of sometimes like rosemary, thyme, catnip. I
Uh
think
huh.
that's the popular one with a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I've actually and they actually do like it. So it's the cat's version of a herbal, fibery kind of
Hmm.
into their diet because they don't actually need that much vegetable matter compared to dogs.
What I
Um,
do for my cats, and sometimes it can be messy, but I find that I always have like wheatgrass growing for them.
mm,
And
yeah.
my cats will, their whole routine, they want to wake up in the morning, and I have an out screened in porch, or it'd be like a balcony, and they go out there, and the first thing they do is they run straight for that grass, and they sit there and
Mm,
smell it and chew it and run it through their teeth. They'll eat some of it, but when they're getting it on it, like people say, oh, but then they throw it up. But when they're getting it on a daily basis, they stop throwing it up, and they're able, because cats, I almost see cats as, how like owls and certain raptors, owl pellets especially, they'll eat the whole mouse, but then they'll take the skin and all the stuff that they can't digest, and they form into these pellets and regurgitate the pellet out. And cats are almost like that. They're such strict carnivores, and they're used to eating mice like owls are, that they need some roughage to clean out their intestines. So when they're on like just a pureed canned food or a processed food, or they don't get the bone and the hair and the roughage in their diet, they need the grass and the plant material, I think, to
mm.
help them out. But I also think that cats in the wild munch on grass and plants, you know.
Yeah.
um
Yeah, I usually like when I go to the supermarket, I might get like a small pot of organic pesticide-free herbs in a pot,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
I wish I could say that I use it for my cooking, but most of the time I actually buy it for my cats because they really, really enjoy it. And some might not really go for it, but those
Mhm.
who really do, they'll start nibbling,
Yeah.
and God forbid they start playing with it as well. You know, but it's
Yeah.
another form of enrichment, besides the
Mhm.
nutritional aspect to it.
Yeah.
So
And planting
that
your
is
own
something.
wheat, yeah, planting your own
Mm,
wheatgrass, you can get, I have like a long planter and I'll reuse that soil several times. And you can buy the grass seeds online. To buy those
mm,
little plant grass things are so expensive. I buy like a huge
mm.
bag of giant grass seeds and I'll just take a handful out and plant them on top and they sprout within days. And you
And
just
it's
keep
not
it
just my
going.
cats that like it. My
The
dog
dog.
likes to
Mhm.
nibble on the grass, especially when it's the first shoots that come out.
Yes.
It becomes like a salad bar for both my cats. Suddenly you see them all nibbling around, and even the cats and dogs, if they don't like each other, they'll tolerate, and they'll start like, it's like savannah or something. They'll start like nibbling on the grass. It's quite funny, and it's funny you mentioned that because tonight I just did gardening session with my neighbor because he's teaching me how to grow my own food because of the pandemic, right? So it's one of my New Year goals is
Oh,
to
cool.
learn how to grow my own vegetables. Even though I live in an urban high-rise apartment, this is one of the things that I want to learn how to do.
Do you have
Um,
a balcony or anything, or are you
no,
growing them
unfortunately, I
inside?
don't.
So you're
I
doing
I don't
inside.
have I don't have a balcony, but we have like a common corridor area and some space in the
Okay.
public space in the building
Uh-huh.
where I can grow. So there's like you can sort of park your pots here and there where there's
Yeah.
sunshine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tonight I actually did I'm growing like microgreens
Oh,
for
great.
actually
And
the
they're
but it's not
easy.
so much for me, yeah, but it's actually for my cats and my dog, and well, for me too, but it was like I was doing it for them, because I know how much they love all these fresh shoots. So I
And they're
it's a lot
packed.
cheaper.
Those
Yeah, the
microgreens are
nutrients.
packed with nutrients. Years ago, before the
Yeah.
microgreens became a big thing, one of my Taoist teachers, she said, if you want to get one of the most power packed, like live foods ever, is to eat the sprouts, the little
Mm.
microgreens.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, sprout. So, I mean,
Yeah.
like, if you're on a very tight budget and you can't afford, say, a
Mhm.
lot of vegetables for your dogs, for instance, like you can't buy kale. I mean, in Singapore, kale is actually expensive because it's
Wow.
considered exotic for
Like
us over
gourmet.
here.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah, it's gourmet kind of thing. But so
Wow.
if you can grow your own sprouts or microgreens, which is really
Yeah.
cheap and easy to do, um, it's actually packed with a lot of enzymes and
Oh yeah.
nutrients. And that alone, if you're on a really strict budget and you can't afford a lot of a variety in, like providing for your animals, this is the best way, both for cats and dogs, and humans too,
Definitely.
and
And
humans as well.
humans. And humans. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So hopefully in 7 days, because I don't have green thumbs, but hopefully in 7 days, some I'm gonna have like seven different. I'm gonna have a nice salad mix coming up.
Oh, well,
But
take a
yeah.
picture. Put a picture on Instagram. I want to see it. I have my whole herb corner. I've got like 2 tomato plants going right now. I've got some turmeric. I've got some ginger plants, mostly herbs. And then I've got some really
Mm,
nice chives. But then I'm paying the farmer on a farm to grow my vegetables from community supported agriculture. So I give him like
nice.
$250 at the beginning of the growing season. And then every week I get a box of vegetables. So a lot of greens and
That's nice. That's
tomatoes
a
and
nice
radish.
option. Yeah,
Yeah.
if you have
Yeah.
that, that's a good option. I was going to ask you because I see you've got so many nice pots in your
Yeah.
veranda porch area. One thing, zoo pharmaconoxy,
Yeah. Yes.
self-selection,
Yes.
like a lot of dogs and cat owners will say like, oh, why does my dog or my cat like choose eating grass, for instance, as we were talking about. I've noticed if you have like edible, animal safe, pesticide free
Yeah.
potted plants in your area or in your garden safety, if you allow the dogs or the cats, they might actually nibble on certain herbs, certain plants.
Hmm.
Um, Not that I'm an expert on this, but this is something that Caroline Ingraham from the UK talks about is self-selection. It helps their body knows what they need,
It's
and
actually
it's
a,
interesting.
I took her class. I'm taking her certification course. Actually, that's one of the big things I'm doing.
Nice.
But
I think that's very exciting.
so yeah, I took her class and I've had some amazing experiences using it with animals. But it's actually a neurophysiological reflex through the nose and into the brain that then turns on a whole physiological process in the animal. And that's why essential oils work, just smelling the
Mm,
essential oil,
yep.
because it's such a
Yeah.
powerful reflex that happens on healing. And both, and she does it for people too. You can do it for people and dogs and cats and horses. So
Yeah. Yeah. So I found that, yeah, these are actually nice different modalities to help support your animal. Whether or not they're sick or healthy, I've always find that it's a nice way of helping them. I use Dr. Mrs. Shelton's Animalio oils because that's the
mhm.
only one that I buy and use from the essential oil market because she has a certain standard that I trust, so I know it's
Mhm.
animal safe and toxin free. Um, but I've actually even noticed some of my cats will be drawn to certain diffusers or different smells. So sometimes I might
Mhm.
diffuse a certain blend in one and then in another room, and I notice that, oh, okay, like, okay, this particular cat, he really likes this smell, right? And he'll be
Mhm.
like in the room. The most obvious one is when they actually park themselves next to the diffuser,
Yeah.
literally,
Yeah.
just and you know that, oh, okay, it's doing something. Even if they don't like to have to be topically applied on them, because some cats just, they
And
can be a bit
I
difficult.
don't recommend, I don't, unless an animal is showing me that they want it topically applied, I really don't recommend topically applying them.
Mm,
Because I've walked into people's houses that use a lot of oils, and just think about it, if you couldn't communicate with somebody and they came up and slathered you with all these oils that were potentially so strong that they could burn your nose, and they were
yeah.
on your skin, there was no way to get away from them.
Mm,
So
yeah. Yeah.
I'm really particular about that.
Yeah, that's
you
why
know
the only brand I would use is Dr. Shelton's Animalio
and even
oils,
putting it on
because they're diluted
topically
down.
though, yeah,
Yeah.
and she uses blends, but even putting it on topically, I'm so careful now. If I'm doing, but i I use self-selection by the animal, and if an animal
Mm-hmm.
self-selects and I have it on my finger and they move a body part up against me. I mean, I when I was working with Carolyn, I took pure peppermint oil. This was an undiluted peppermint oil, which they say is
Mm.
toxic. And I had my hands, a pool of it in the palm of my hand. And this horse came up to me who had had major, he was a polo pony, and the guy who broke them, they used knots in the bridles, and he had all this scar tissue on his face, over his nerves, all on his face. He would not allow a bridle or a halter to be put on his head. He had so much pain and scar tissue there. And I held out my hand with peppermint oil, and this horse walked up to me and ended up, he smelled it at first, then he took his tongue and licked it, and people were like aghast, and Carolyn was like, let him do it, let him do it. She said, pour
Yeah.
more oil into her hands. By the time I was done, that horse had taken his head and just rubbed the side of his
Mm.
head all over on my hands to get that peppermint oil on him. Now if an animal's like doing
Yeah.
that, or they're showing me, they're coming up and rubbing into me, I'll put it on topically, but I let them really try to
Yeah.
guide those sessions. Because he
Yeah.
obviously,
Yeah.
peppermint oil is
Yeah.
good for
Yeah. Because
nerve pain.
I interviewed Caroline Ingraham the last time, and she was
Mm-hmm.
sharing stories as well about how, you know, her journey into self-selection and her experiences with different
Yeah.
animals, you know, especially in Africa and all that. It was really
Yeah.
interesting. And she even said sometimes she had this case where there was a dog that didn't even want to look at it, you know, but she actually noticed that it was the smell alone that was enough. She
Yeah.
said usually like sometimes we see the dog like that, or you know, turn its
Yeah.
head, or even a cat, and we think, oh, they don't like it, but actually it's another way of them saying like it's enough. I've
They're
inhaled
taking
enough
that dose. Yeah. They're taking that single
through
dose,
the yeah
and
it,
then sometimes they'll come
they,
back to it. You know,
yeah
they'll take like one
yeah
dose and then they'll turn away. And then like 5, 10 minutes later, they'll come back and get another
they'll come
dose of
back
it.
again and then they'll
Yeah.
turn.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
again their way of doing self-selection. It
Mhm.
was a really fascinating. I really love Caroline Ingraham.
She is near and dear to my
She's
heart, Amris. I
she's
mean,
one of my superheroes. She's one of my superheroes.
out
She's
of
amazing.
anybody
She's got
I've
a huge
worked with
heart.
in the
Mm,
animal world, she's probably the most egoless person I've ever worked with.
yeah, yeah.
I
So
mean,
if you've
it is
never
all
heard
about
of
that
her,
animal, you know.
yeah,
Yeah.
if you've never heard of her, you just have to Google her. She actually has this book that she came out with. It's Animal Self Medication. It's a huge book from the UK. But she's now offering like online courses. So if you
Yeah.
even in the US or even in Singapore, you can
Well,
actually
and
pay for like courses to
yeah, to
do it.
get the courses. Yeah. I actually
Yeah.
had a case last year. It was actually Jackie, who's in the reverence group. She had a dog that had anal sac adenocarcinoma, cancer of the anal sacs, and they went in and took it out, and they were like, well, you have to do chemo, radiation, all this stuff. And he was just the type of dog who was just a sensitive soul. And she's like, Josie, I can't put him through that. You know, if it's not,
Mm.
there's not a hope for a cure, I'm not going to put him through it. And it was so funny, Amras, he would not, that dog would not allow me to put an acupuncture needle in him. He was so adamant he was not going to have any acupuncture needles. And I'm like, well, what can we do? Now I had him on Chinese herbs, but I'm like, what can I do to treat him? And I brought in my oil kit and I used Carolyn Ingraham's process with it. And I just went through each individual oils, no combinations, and used each one. And I would sit there for an hour and a half once a week, and he would self-select certain oils,
Mm.
and then I would take him outside and he would let me do moxa on him. A year
Wow.
after his diagnosis, she went back in to the oncologist, and the oncologist, she had to drop the dog off because of COVID, but the oncologist came out and she's like, she had to double check with her that it was the same dog and that it was the right x-rays that were shown over an ultrasound report before, because there was
Yeah.
no growth there. And all I'd done, I
Wow.
was doing moxa and just the essential oils, but using Carolyn's method. But that was the
Mm.
only
Yep.
thing that dog would accept. And I'm like, well, this is probably what's going to help him then.
Yeah. Yeah, I need to also emphasize for a lot of listeners when we talk about essential oils, you have to get really the good quality grade ones, not the ones that
Yes.
you get from the like 7-Eleven kind of
No, no,
places.
no, no, no.
So you have to know your sources, like they have to be really good quality. So I would say Caroline Ingram's range of oils, whatever she recommends is good. Um,
You can
I use
buy
Dr.
oils
Melissa
from her.
Shelton's.
She
Yeah, you can
shipped.
buy oils from her. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, just make sure that whoever you choose, you trust the source. You know, you don't have to go with ours because, like I said, I only know what I know, but you
Yeah.
might know a better source. But it's really the quality of oils that you use. Someone just asked, is now brand good?
I can't
Now
say
it's from
that now.
iHerb. Okay, this is a close circle. I would say, based on I personally wouldn't use it for animals. Um, yeah, I mean, yeah,
If you're starting out and you're doing your animals and it's something you're just getting into as an animal owner, I would literally either go with Animal EO Melissa Shelton's or with Carolyn
mm,
Ingram's.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Personally,
You'll be surprised.
I have like old doTERRA when doTERRA started, and I will use those on me, but there's a couple that I think now they've even changed a lot, but I think for the animals I would stick with,
Yeah.
you know,
The politics in essential
it's
oil industry is as bad as in the commercial food for the pet food industry and big pharma. There's a lot of corruption going on
totally,
nowadays, you know. So what started out with a lot of brands with the original owners and good intentions and good standards, when they get too big after a while, unfortunately, there's a dilution in quality and there's a corruption in management. So it is a bit hard, but yeah, I mean, like honestly, for me personally, I would really only recommend Caroline Ingram's range or Dr. Melissa Shelton. Um, Caroline. Okay, let me just type it out. Caroline Ingraham. So if you Google zoo
yeah. I
pharmacognosy,
think
I
if you
think it's
just
with an
Google
S.
her name too, Google
Yeah,
her
yeah.
name.
She's based in the UK.
She's based in the
She's
UK,
based in
and
the UK.
she has her whole line of oils, individual oils, and some
Yeah,
of her oils I couldn't even find at other companies. She's
yeah,
got a really
yeah.
wild carrot seed oil. She's got this violet
Mm,
oil. Um, and they're all the oils
yeah,
from her book as well. And if
yeah,
you get the book, you
yeah.
can go through step by step.
Yeah, the book is a bit hefty for the budget, I think. But if you are really interested in using this line of modality, it's actually worth it in the long term for both humans and animals. That's my
Yeah.
personal feeling. I would also mention that yes, you're paying a bit more. It's like budget wise, it's more expensive, but the amount you use is actually not going to be that much. You'll be very surprised that a little goes a long way. Um, and I've honestly using good essential oils for animals, like what Dr. Josie here was saying, you know, either self-selection or diffusion or something. Um, any animal and human, we actually will benefit either from both methods: diffusion, inhalation, topical, if they let you, you know. We have seen improvements in the animal on across all different types of issues. um, so yeah, my rescue, we actually use a lot of these things because it's like I don't have a lot of, I don't, unlike the US where Dr. Josie is, you guys have a lot of, compared to Singapore, a lot more
Yeah.
options for holistic vets. I know it sounds terrible to say this because I know my friends in the US, they said, "Oh, we can't find a holistic vet where I live."
Yeah. I
But
was gonna say
I know, I know,
I
but
think
you see,
I've got
US is
my
so
waiting
big.
list, but my waiting list, I've got people calling me, and my waiting list is 2 months out if I end up being able to work them in, you know. But one
Yeah,
thing to do with
and
the essential oils is to take, especially like if you have a cat in with rescue or something, if you have an animal in like one area, like in a room or in a cage or something, you can take little pieces of muslin or cotton and just put a couple drops of the oil on and put
yeah,
different oils in their area and watch to see which ones they go to. But Carolyn will use that when she's working with zoo animals and the big cats, or even like
yeah,
feral cats. You know, you just
yeah,
put it out in the
yeah,
environment so they can come and walk up to it and walk away from it, kind of like the
yeah.
diffuser. Oh.
Yeah, so these are options that I find for animals when they're not well. It's wonderful. Actually, another thing that I do for my cats, I actually put out, well, you can put trays or towels because I live in a flat. But I actually scatter like different types of herbs. Sometimes it's
Mm-hmm.
catnip, sometimes valerian. Um, you know, animal safe, you know, organic herbs, pesticide
Yeah.
free, but I will put them in, you know, like in an area, and then I'll see which cat goes to which herb. And sometimes they would just like to roll
Well,
and or lick it or eat it. But it I think for me as a layperson, I look at it as an enrichment process. But it also gives them some, well, the herbs obviously will have some nutritional benefits as well, right, Dr. Josie?
uh-huh. and medicine and
Yeah.
medicinal, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, this is another form of herbal self-selection besides essential oils is
Yes.
using these dried herbs. It's like yeah, so you just put them in like, either on a towel if you don't want to get too messy or on a tray. You
Yeah.
just put a little bit and then you see what the cat wants to do. And it's interesting, some cats will gravitate towards a certain herb
Yeah.
one day and then maybe a different herb another day. Um, so yeah, and they always, I don't know, they seem more relaxed.
Hmm.
It's like a day spa for them where they just chill out, especially
Yeah.
because I live in a flat. Yeah, but
Well, and
um,
using some of the
any
adaptogenic herbs like the tulsi and the nettles and even like ashwagandha or any kind of powdered herbs you could put out there. You have to be careful. There's certain herbs that cats don't do well with. There, you can find a list of them online, like pennyroyal, and you have to be careful with like birch and willow and things like that. But you can
yeah,
look online for
yeah.
those.
Wow, Dr. Josie, I didn't think we would, but we actually been chatting for almost an hour and a half.
Wow. Yeah, I figured. I didn't know what the time was. I figured.
Yeah,
That's the way it goes.
yeah. So we're almost out of time, but
Yeah.
I want to thank Gasso, Madam Gasso,
Oui.
and Nancy and
Nancy.
Delphina for joining us today and and joining us for this really nice circle. We meet once a month. So who joins us in this circle, it varies sometimes. Today we're just really blessed with Dr. Josie. You'll see her more often as well. She actually has her own online community called Reverence. Hold on, let me just write it out. Reverence. It's it's an online community where she basically talks about um TCM, the five elements, how with animals and humans. It's a bit more on the woo woo side, everybody. If you're into the woo woo side,
It's more,
the
it's about, yeah, going back to the rhythms of the earth. I'm going to be opening up
Mother
right now.
Earth. Yeah,
Yeah, right now I took people through a whole journey through the five elements and the five seasons, but I'm going to be
mm,
opening it up this spring to a broader readership and probably be including some of my coursework just on care of animals
yeah,
in there as well. So,
yeah.
yeah,
So,
but we're going to
so
do.
yeah, it's going to be fun. So she'll be, speaking to us more often. And I'll share whatever episodes we do on Mindvalley as well. So I just want to thank everyone for your time, Dr. Josie. As always, I love
Thank
talking to you.
you.
Like I said, I never know where the conversation ends up
No.
being, but you know, uh, you're such a lovely soul. You're one of the
Oh,
like
thank you.
I really look up to you as one of my teachers, so I really want to thank you for sharing your knowledge with us today.
Oh, you're welcome, Amaris. You're welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Take care, everyone.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Okay, bye.
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 Wow, I'm so thankful and grateful that you took the time to listen to this podcast. It would mean the world to me if you could subscribe, download, rate, review, and share this with others whom you care about that may enjoy it as well. Thank you, and remember to be kind to yourself and others. Have a awesome day, everyone.